Everyone gets a miracle. My miracle was I wound up living across the street from Margo Roth Spiegelman. She was arguably the most gorgeous creature that God had ever created.
Are you gonna spend the rest of high school pining for this girl?
The world of teenage dreams has always carried a strange kind of magic, a feeling that every street corner hides a secret and every late-night conversation could change a life forever. Few films capture that bittersweet transition between adolescence and adulthood as beautifully as The Paper Towns. Adapted from the best-selling novel by John Green, the film transforms a simple mystery into an emotional exploration of identity, friendship, love, and the painful realization that people are often far more complicated than the fantasies we create about them. While many teen movies focus on romance or comedy alone, this story blends mystery, emotional introspection, humor, and heartfelt adventure into a narrative that feels both deeply personal and universally relatable. At the center of the story is Quentin Jacobsen, played by Nat Wolff, a quiet and thoughtful high school senior whose life has become structured, predictable, and safe. Quentin lives in suburban Florida, surrounded by routines, graduation plans, and the looming fear of an uncertain future. Since childhood, however, one person has always existed like a mystery just outside his reach. That person is Margo Roth Spiegelman, portrayed by Cara Delevingne, Quentin's adventurous and enigmatic neighbor. Margo is everything Quentin is not. She is spontaneous, fearless, charismatic, and impossible to fully understand. To Quentin, she represents excitement, freedom, and the possibility of a life larger than the ordinary world he knows. The film begins by establishing the emotional connection between Quentin and Margo during their childhood years. As kids, they shared a sense of wonder and curiosity about the world around them. One haunting childhood memory shapes Quentin's fascination with her forever when the two discover the body of a man who apparently took his own life. While Quentin reacts with fear and confusion, Margo becomes obsessed with understanding the mystery behind the tragedy. Even at a young age, she seems drawn toward unanswered questions and hidden meanings, as though the world itself were a puzzle waiting to be solved. This moment quietly foreshadows the person she will become later in life, someone who is always searching for something deeper and more meaningful beyond the surface. As the years pass, Quentin and Margo drift apart socially, despite remaining neighbors. Quentin becomes more reserved, focused on school and maintaining stability, while Margo transforms into a legendary figure within their high school. Stories about her adventures circulate constantly. She sneaks into concerts, disappears on wild escapades, and seems to live entirely outside the rules everyone else follows. To Quentin, Margo is almost mythical, less like a real person and more like the embodiment of every teenage fantasy about freedom and rebellion. He watches her from a distance, secretly in love with the idea of her, even though he barely understands who she truly is anymore. Everything changes one night when Margo unexpectedly climbs through Quentin's bedroom window and invites him on an all-night revenge adventure across Orlando. What follows becomes one of the most memorable sequences in modern coming-of-age cinema. Under the glow of streetlights and the quiet energy of midnight, Quentin is pulled into Margo's chaotic world. Together, they break into SeaWorld, prank Margo's cheating boyfriend, confront her fake friends, and leave behind cryptic messages that reflect her frustration with the superficial world surrounding her. The night feels magical and surreal, almost like Quentin has stepped into a dream he never wants to end. During this adventure, the chemistry between Quentin and Margo becomes undeniable. Nat Wolff delivers Quentin with a mixture of nervous sincerity and emotional vulnerability, making him instantly relatable to anyone who has ever fallen in love with someone who felt unattainable. Meanwhile, Cara Delevingne gives Margo an intoxicating sense of mystery. She appears confident and fearless on the surface, but subtle moments reveal loneliness and emotional exhaustion beneath her adventurous exterior. The night becomes more than a series of pranks. It becomes Quentin's glimpse into the complexity hiding behind her carefully constructed image. But just as suddenly as she reappears in Quentin's life, Margo vanishes again. She disappears without explanation, leaving her family and friends confused. At first, nobody seems overly concerned because Margo has disappeared before, yet Quentin notices something different this time. He begins discovering clues hidden in strange places, fragments of poetry, highlighted passages, maps, and mysterious references that seem intentionally left behind for him to find. Convinced that Margo wants him to follow her trail, Quentin embarks on a journey to uncover the truth about where she went and why she disappeared. The mystery element gives the story its momentum, but what truly elevates the film is the emotional transformation Quentin experiences during the search. Initially, Quentin believes he is chasing the girl he loves. He imagines a grand romantic outcome waiting at the end of the mystery, as though solving Margo's clues will allow them to finally be together. However, the deeper he digs into her disappearance, the more he begins realizing how little he actually understands her. Margo is not simply the adventurous dream girl he created in his imagination. She is a deeply unhappy young woman, struggling with the emptiness of the world around her and trying desperately to escape the expectations others place upon her. Quentin's friends play an essential role in grounding the story with humor and emotional warmth. Austin Abrams portrays Ben, Quentin's sarcastic and hilarious best friend, whose obsession with prom and relationships provides many of the film's funniest moments. Ben constantly delivers comedic relief, yet beneath his humor lies genuine loyalty and affection for his friends. Justice Smith plays Radar, another member of Quentin's friend group who is intelligent, awkward, and quietly thoughtful. Radar struggles with embarrassment over his parents' collection of black Santas decorating their house, creating one of the movie's recurring comedic elements, while also highlighting his insecurities about identity and normalcy. Together, Ben and Radar transform the story from a solitary mystery into a heartfelt friendship adventure. Themes of illusion. As Quentin follows Margo's clues, the story gradually evolves into a meditation on perception and illusion. The title itself, Paper Towns, refers to fake locations mapmakers once inserted into maps to detect copyright infringement. These non-existent places become a metaphor for how people invent false versions of others in their minds. Quentin slowly realizes that he has spent years loving an idea of Margo rather than the real person. He viewed her as extraordinary and untouchable, projecting onto her all the excitement and meaning missing from his own life. But real people are not fantasies. They are flawed, scared, complicated, and often impossible to fully know. Road trip sequence. As Quentin's investigation continues, the clues eventually point toward a small town in New York called Agloe, a real paper town that once appeared on maps despite not truly existing. The discovery transforms the mystery into a literal and symbolic journey.
Quentin and his friends embark on a frantic road trip to find Margo before graduation, leading to some of the film's funniest and most heartfelt moments. The road trip sequence captures the chaotic energy of youth perfectly. Friends argue, joke, sing, panic, and bond together as they race against time. Beneath the humor lies the painful awareness that their lives are about to change forever. Final reunion. When Quentin finally finds Margo in Agloe, the emotional payoff avoids the clichés audiences might expect from a traditional romantic drama. Margo is alive and safe, living quietly away from the world she wanted to escape. Yet the reunion is bittersweet rather than triumphant. Quentin realizes that Margo never intended for him to rescue her or complete some grand romantic destiny. She left clues partly because she knew he would understand them, but also because she wanted someone to truly see her as a human being rather than an idealized fantasy. Their final conversations form the emotional core of the entire film. Quentin admits that he spent years imagining Margo as something extraordinary and untouchable, while Margo reveals how exhausting it felt to constantly live up to other people's expectations and projections. She is not a mystery to be solved or a dream to be won. She is simply a person trying to figure out her place in the world. This realization fundamentally changes Quentin's understanding of love. Genuine connection requires seeing people for who they truly are, not who we imagine them to be. Ending message. The ending refuses to deliver a conventional fairy tale romance, and that choice gives the story its emotional honesty. Quentin and Margo do not ride off into the sunset together. Instead, Quentin returns home with a deeper understanding of himself and the people around him. He reconnects with his friends, embraces the uncertainty of the future, and begins moving forward with emotional maturity. The experience teaches him that life is not about chasing impossible fantasies. It is about appreciating real moments and real relationships, while accepting that people are imperfect and constantly changing. Final outro. Even years after its release, Paper Towns continues resonating because it captures a universal emotional experience. Nearly everyone has created idealized versions of other people in their minds. Nearly everyone has mistaken fantasy for reality at some point in life. The film gently reminds audiences that true connection begins only when we abandon those fantasies and allow others to exist as their authentic selves. In the end, the mystery of Margo Roth Spiegelman is never completely solved, and that is precisely the point. Human beings cannot be fully understood or defined by someone else's perspective. Quentin's journey teaches him that love is not about possession or fantasy. It is about empathy, understanding, and accepting uncertainty. Through late-night adventures, cryptic clues, emotional revelations, and unforgettable friendships, the film transforms a teenage mystery into a deeply moving exploration of what it means to truly see another person. That emotional honesty is what ultimately makes Paper Towns unforgettable. Beneath its road trip comedy, romantic tension, and mystery lies a powerful truth about growing up. As children and teenagers, we often imagine the world in exaggerated colors, turning people into heroes, villains, or symbols of our dreams. But adulthood begins when we recognize the complexity of reality, when we understand that everyone around us carries invisible struggles and private hopes. Quentin begins the story searching for the girl of his dreams, but he ends it with something far more valuable: the wisdom to understand that real people are infinitely more meaningful than the fantasies we create about them.